Yeah, so it first started when this one was just on Facebook one day and going through, and he saw a post about a Canadian Boy Scout that had designed the ear saver and was printing them. The first one looks like, let me grab one.
Kind of the original version that we saw. I don't think we actually have one right there, the original one.
I don't think we have a very original one, but they look something like this. And they basically, they went on the back of your head to hold the hooks, grab the elastic from the mask, so it takes the pressure off your ear.
So that was important, I think, for us to kind of realize, because nobody in our family is in the medical field. So we had no idea that this was even an issue, right?
Yeah. Hey, Jason, can you take a step back and just maybe talk about why you guys have 3D printers in the first place, what sparked your interests, how you guys got involved, like even pre-COVID-19?
Okay, sure.
So the reason why it was this printer that we had already had was because I really like engineering and stuff like that. So, and when my grandpa got a 3D printer, I was just always using it. And so he got me one for Christmas, and I was just using it. And then when we saw the post, we started printing a bunch of them on just this one. And then...
Yep, so interested in engineering, just in general. And what grade are you in currently?
I'm currently in 8th grade.
Okay, yep. And you're
That's
going
great.
So really...
All right, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Jump in with those questions. And kind of what's your aspiration of what kind of a job do you want to have going forward? What are you thinking?
I'm hoping to be a chemical engineer.
Yeah, absolutely. So it really kind of fit with the 3D printer, your interests anyways, and what you want to do going forward. And then kind of like what Adam was, then comes the COVID deal, and we find that little thing, right?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So we started producing some of them, right?
Oh, yeah. And then a bunch of other hospitals and stuff were asking for more. So my grandpa then brought over his, which was this one. And then we kept making more. And then Data set up like a GoFundMe and stuff like that. So that way people can donate, in an Amazon wish list. So that way they can donate the actual filaments, which are these things right here. And then a bunch of people just kept donating a ton of these, while a bunch of hospitals just kept ordering more and more. So then my school then allowed us to use this one, which was from my school. And then another high school in the Vail District gave us the sugar cube over here.
The sugar cube. Yeah. So then, so we started producing a lot, right? And so we've got a bunch of filament that's coming in. And then we changed the design. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And so why don't you show them what the new design is and why?
Because the first design looks like that, and it works, but then we came across, we were searching, we found this design that is a lot thinner. That's a lot thinner, and it uses way less filament, and it takes about half the time to actually print. Because the only limitation we had was because 3D printers take forever to print.
Right.
So it took about half the time and a lot less filament. So that way we could make a lot more faster.
Sure. So you got Yvette here on the line as well. So she's also working on some of these kind of things as well. But they're using, I think it's either, she said hi, but they're using like, is it a laser cutter that you guys are using, or basically
CNC machine?
We have a laser cutter, and it's a little different. We were looking at using a 3D printer, but the biggest problem was that they're small and slow, right? So we actually got access to industrial equipment. So the laser machine that we use is it's like over 10 grand. And so we were really fortunate to be able to borrow that for a bit. But yeah, it's been a really cool process to learn about this.
Yeah, so Avery, kind of, so when we're working with the CNC machines and the laser printers, how many dimensions really do they have to be able to work on?
Yeah, so the one downside with the CNC machine / laser cutter is that CNC machines can only work in 2 dimensions because it cuts away from the material, whereas a 3D printer goes from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions.
Sure. So why don't you want to show them the one custom ear saver we made?
Because also one of the things.
Now, for the record, when he shows you this, this was only done a couple times. We did not resell these.
Yes.
So, in full disclosure.
Because with a 3D printer, you can put whatever you want on an ear saver. Like on this one, we have the Ohio State logo. Like you can't do that with a CNC machine.
Well, listen, I'll take that one off your hands since I'm an Ohio State alumni.
There you go. See?
There's so little demand for them at this point.
You're right. You know, so what's interesting, I think, as Avery's been working through this thing is he also, you know, understands where the pros and cons are for each different machine. So a lot of like what Yvette's doing is I think you can knock like 1,500 out in a day,
Yeah.
something like that, where we're limited to about 400 a day. So you can see that she's really going to have the capacity to do 3 times as many, but we can play around with some extra layers. So we can add on some customized things, or we can
Yeah, because one
embed
thing.
things. Oh, go ahead.
Because one thing about this design is that you may not be able to see it, but it's actually slightly taller on the actual hook. You can't, just to make it ever so slightly stronger. And with a 3D printer, we can make these things. Now this is just a little thing to hold the savers, just like that, and then you get more. It's just a little holder. You can make those with a 3D printer, but not a CNC.
Yeah. So that's been interesting, I think, for him to find out. So, Avery, why don't you talk to us about our inventory here? So I'm putting it up on the screen there.
Can they see it?
No, they can't see it.
Oh.
Just you. But I wanted to put it up there so that you can see it. But basically, I know it's probably a little bit lower than here, but if you want to talk me through how generous the community's been at this point.
Yeah. So, yeah, the community has been so generous to, I think, 31.3 kilograms of filament, which was like 30 of these, something like that.
Yeah. And so we did some math, right? Because how many actual units can you get out of one of these spools?
So on one spool that will hold about 1 kilogram, you can get about 500 out of just the one spool.
Okay. So with just about 30 kilograms, and you can get 5 out of each kilogram.
About.
How many units could we produce with what we've been given so far?
Well, if no errors, you could make about, with everything that we have, you can make.
I tried to cheat and give him the answer, but he can't.
15,650.
Yeah, absolutely. So then we started calculating, and so this I think will help reiterate a little bit of how, you know, some of the thinking that Yvette's gone through about just how to mass produce this thing. You know, do you want to talk to him about how long it's going to take us just to work through all of our filament?
Yeah.
With no mistakes, no machines going down.
Yeah, because also for the one printer to go through one batch, it can make 5 in 35 minutes. And when we calculate that with 3 printers and everything, and if we print for 14 hours a day, it'll take about 43 days to print everything we have, which is like, what was it, 15,000 savers?
Yeah, about 15,000.
Yeah.
What's your guys' error rate?
You know what the question means? What's our error rate?
I know what that means.
Okay. Of course you do.
There's not really a rate. It's honestly very random because sometimes you can have a printer that gets about 1,000 before something goes wrong, or you can have one that never makes any and just error after error. It's just, it also mainly depends on the printer. Like these ones require a lot less maintenance than this one. It's just completely random.
But it seemed like you were saying more like, I don't know, what if we probably went through and wasted maybe 5 or 10 of them yesterday of a batch of 400. And that's just because we had to re-level the bed.
Oh yeah, because this one over here, we needed to re-level it, but didn't know it. So yesterday, about 5 of them were ruined because the bed was misleveled.
Yeah.
But it's not very often when we have to re-level a bed. It's just
Good.
that sometimes the nuts get a little loose.
I know you guys are getting a lot of the filament either donated or having the money provided for you, but take that out of the equation. What is your cost per unit? How much, if you were just to be selling these in the open market, take all the donations out, what is the cost per unit?
So 1 kilogram spool will cost about $20. And if you can make 500 with 1 spool, it costs about 5 cents per unit, I think.
Yeah, that's all right. I mean, that doesn't take in consideration like electricity, or,
And that's just the
our
raw
time
filament.
frame. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
because
Adam, I think that gives you kind of a good idea.
Yep.
but just the pure plastic material is about 5 cents per unit. But like you said, the electricity to run the machine and the time we're putting in could ump the price a little more.
Have you seen variations in the price of filament? And also, is there a supply? I mean, is there enough, or is it something that's a little bit scarce?
Well, when quarantine first hit, I don't know why, but for some reason, Amazon was just out of stock on all of the filament, pretty much everything. So it was pretty scarce then. About now, they've got a little more stock. And and when like 3D printers were first invented, filament was a lot more than, like, it was maybe $30 for a kilogram, $40. Now it's only $20 for a kilogram because they've been more industrialized
Yeah.
than before.
So I think from an economic standpoint, what he was talking about was I think when COVID first hit, it really became these ear savers were something that could be used with these 3D printers. That there was a lack of supply and there was a high demand, so the price drove up. But now that the producers have come up with these spools, it's probably brought the price down a little bit more, huh?
Yeah.
Avery or Jason, can you comment on those machines behind you? What are the standard price of a 3D printer, something like those 3 that are behind you?
So it really depends, like this one or this one. This one is really cheap. Like it's $160 to $100. It depends when you get it. But the thing with this one is it requires a lot of maintenance. Whereas this one is about $300. It's 3 times more expensive, but it pretty much does a lot of the things you need to do for you.
And it's less maintenance.
And it's way less maintenance.
The user interface is a little bit more user-friendly.
Yeah, like this one, it seems very easy to use as a touch screen. This one isn't as simple. But it's like if you know how to take care of the machine, I would suggest getting this one because it's way cheaper. But if you have no idea what to do, maybe this one. But I still think this one's a little overpriced.
Can you give an overview of how those machines work for maybe someone that's not aware of how 3D printers work?
So how a 3D printer works is there's the bed that slides this way, that slides this way, but the main thing is those filaments.
Here, I can almost move the camera down.
Yeah.
Here, Tanya, bear with me for a second here.
So the filament right here on the spool, that's a solid, and it comes down into the extruder, which melts the filaments, and then
see if we can get down here.
Which what it does is it melts the filament and then spews it out of the nozzle onto the plate, and then there's a cooling fan that cools it off and it goes back into a solid. But the thing is that this whole extruder will move in a specific way and at a specific speed, so that way it can create a design out of the melted filament.
And how do you create those plates?
The what?
How do you create the plates that it's putting the liquid into?
Oh, you mean this thing? The bed?
Yeah.
It kind of depends. It could just be a piece of metal or a piece of glass. But then the thing is, if you have a heated bed, so the filament will stick a lot better to it, which will require some electronics.
But that came with the kit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But typically the bed and everything, it comes with the kits.
How'd you create the mold though? The mold that has the shape of the band, how'd you create that?
The mold that...
You mean
Never mind. So how does it know what the band looks like? Is there a program?
Oh, okay.
Programming that you put
So
into
what we do is we have an STL file, which is basically just a 3D file of what we want to print. In this case, the ear saver.
Jason, can I share my screen? Did you give me access to do that?
Yes, you can. It's all yours.
All right.
And
So I'm going to go ahead and sign into the Tinkercad. You want to tell them about,
well, I was thinking open up Kira or something.
do you want to start with Tinkercad and then we'll move it over?
Oh. I mean, I would do it from Kira, but
Okay, whatever you want.
basically what you do is in Tinkercad, that's when you would build your 3D object. And then in Kira, which is another common program, you would,
Here, let's do this. We'll start.
what Kira does is it takes the 3D object and it's, what they call is it slices it into different layers that the printer, and then it basically tells the printer what position to go to and how much filament to extrude as it's moving. And it's just a bunch of that. And eventually you have a object. That's one of the reasons why it takes a long time.
All right. So this is what they're able to see, I think.
Avery, did you have to purchase the file, or was it just something that was shared just because of good nature?
Well, there are sometimes people will charge for a file, but the original file and like the file for this one, those were just free on the internet that we downloaded. But in Tinkercad, like that my dad has up right now, you can create your own files for free.
So I'm just showing them a couple how you kind of design.
Could you maybe
things.
go out of the perspective mode? So that way it looks a lot better for them. There we go.
So this is kind of an example of what we do when you design it. So then you can just make the design whatever you like. Then from there, you would want to save the file. And
Jason, it might be frozen. It looks like it just on my screen. It just says Tinkercad. There we
Yeah,
go.
mine too.
Oh, that's
Mm.
right. Does that work better? Can you see the top off thing?
There you go.
Yeah,
So this is an example. We've just got someone who works for Topgolf and she wanted some. So we were able to just grab the logo and then we're able to put it on there. And then from here, let me move this out of the way. Oops.
So then you would download it as an STL file, which is just a type. And what you would do is you open up your slicing program. The most common one would be Cura.
I'm going to get there in just a second. Bud.
Yeah, my
So
dad's.
what is the slicing program? I think you explained it anyways, but
So a slicing program, what it does is it takes the object and you give it like a couple different factors, like what temperature you want to print at, etc. And it slices it into like different layers. And then on each layer, it will tell it a specific movement to do and how much filament to extrude when it's doing that while it's moving.
there we go. If we come in here, there we go.
They can. It still looks like Tinkercad.
Oh, does it? Can you guys see where it's yellow or?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, you
yes,
can see that.
Oh, I didn't move it onto your screen. There you go.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, so then in Cura right here, as you can see on the side, or I'm not sure if it's this way or this way, but on the side, there's a bunch of settings that you put in, and then you take the stuff there. And then if you go into the layer view, there it will show you all the different layers that it does. Like as you see, could you like zoom in on one?
Which one?
Like on the very first layer, that's where it's going to move.
So where all the blue lines are is where the machine actually goes.
Yeah. Well, the blue lines is where it moves when it's not extruding. The red lines are the shell, and the yellow is just like infill and is infill.
There you go. Yeah.
And as you see, it moves as it'll go up a layer, move around, move up to the next layer, and move around.
Yeah. So Tanya, hopefully that helps kind of walk you through.
Yeah, it's really interesting. How many layers is your bands?
So it also depends on how tall each layer height is. With what I like to do with a layer height of 0.4 millimeters, this ear saver is about 3 layers tall. two of which are the main body, and then one layer is just those little extra tall bits on the hooks.
Now, where'd you gain all the expertise of how to do this? Did you have a class in school where you learned a lot, or is it just by trial and error?
It was mostly from trial and error, but my grandpa was also teaching me a lot about it. But it was mostly just because I kind of just taught myself most of it.
Does your grandpa have experience using them, or was it just a hobby for him as well?
This is actually my grandpa. This one is actually my grandpa's printer. He's had it for a long time. That's the printer that I learned to use.
What's interesting about my dad is he's a facilities guy, and he's worked in construction. That's, you know, where his training is, but he's always been fascinated in like mechanics and engineering. He just didn't have the schooling behind it. So he's always kind of tinkered around with some of these things. And so that's where he gave Avery the original interest in it. It's now Avery's kind of working on the schooling side of it so he can get into the engineering side.
Yeah.
So do you want to give them an update kind of on our project numbers? So this is how many we've made.
So we have currently, out of the entire time we've been making them, we've made just a little over 5,000. And we have delivered just a little under 3,500.
Yeah. So
what are your plans for the future, Avery? I mean, obviously there's still going to be a need for this, but do you see yourself being able to diversify the products you're making, or are you still going to stick down this road?
I'm pretty sure this will just be like a little project, and once the whole coronavirus thing lifts up, then we'll probably just return to our regular life. I don't think we'll turn this into like a nonprofit organization or something.
What's the first thing you're going to make once you're done making hair savers?
I don't know.
Lightsaber?
Lightsaber. I actually
In that
have
case, make two then, huh?
I mean, like I have actually been designing a lightsaber that I'm thinking of printing.
There you go.
I was just going to ask you that. What have you done before this started? What have you been printing? So
Before this, I would just design a bunch of things, mostly like merchandise because I see one company's logo and I think, oh, I could make that a Christmas tree ornament or something. And I just did a bunch of stuff like that. And then sometimes I would design things that, like if something small breaks, I would design something to fix it.
Your water bottle? That was one thing.
Like my water bottle, the lid broke. So then we designed a new one and it worked.
pretty cool.
We made little wedges for our refrigerator in the garage. So
Yeah.
it was taller. I mean, that's the one thing too that this project has helped, I think, Avery expand his mind on, is just knowing that with the 3D printing, your only imagination, or the only limiting factor is your imagination. So it's like even that box you made for the controller for your friend.
Oh, yeah.
You created the hinge, a whole box, 3D printed that thing. You know, it's almost virtually anything.
Uh-huh.
They can be just parts, or it can be, you know, something.
Or it can just be a cool, like I don't know, it could just be an ear saver with your name on it or something.
Yeah, you can customize them, you know, or anything. So,
Avery, what's been the coolest part of this whole process, or what's your big takeaway from doing this and seeing the support you're getting, not just from healthcare workers, but from people in the community and even the recognition? What are your overall takeaways from this whole process?
I think it's definitely teaching me a lot about how to, like, maintenance of the printers and like engineering a little bit of that, but I haven't really been designing them. And it definitely is really cool to just give away the stuff so that way everyone's ears are saved.
yeah. I got to get Avery working on how to monetize on opportunities instead of giving it all away. That's what the
That's for the chamber and for 9th grade.
Oh, 9th grade. So that's what you got to look forward to next year. You know, one of the things too that's really been fascinating about this is we just had a I want to talk about the power of social media for a second too, because I've, you know, Avery and I have had these conversations too, where, you know, he's getting to that age where he's starting to recognize kind of what's going on, and it's a political year, so there's an election, and we were talking about how if this whole coronavirus wasn't around, what would the landscape of social media look like? And it'd be a little on the nasty side. You know, history tells us that way. But through this whole process, it's really been, people have just been so supportive and spread the word really far. And so we've had people that I went to high school with that were a part of a hospital up in Phoenix. And so they ordered 100 to start with. They got them and they were super excited. They ordered another 100. And then randomly, some perfect stranger found one of our posts. He asked for 100, but he said that the foundation was actually interested in trying to be involved with this. And so we're working with them to see what the foundation wants to do from a helpful standpoint as well. So the power of the social media has been used in such a powerful way, in such a positive way too, that I think that's what's really what I think the power of social media can do as well. I'm hoping Avery sees that from a positive light as well.
Yeah.
Very impressive. Very, very cool. Avery, what are the hobbies you have aside from this? What excites you? What do you do as other hobbies besides this? Is very cool, but
I actually like a mix of different things. Like I like flying, like video games, and I really like animals. Like I have 2 cats. One of them is sitting here staring at me.
Following you around, bud? Yeah. Yeah, he certainly likes the flying stuff.
But I actually, something a little weird is I really like math. Like when I'm doing an equation and it falls together perfectly, I just really like that. I also really love, my favorite branch of science is chemistry. So that's why I want to be a chemical engineer, because it combines everything I like.
Good for you. That math will definitely come in handy.
Yeah, for sure. So what do you think about some of the Asking Avery segments? Has that been interesting to go through? Because that's not something you would typically do at school, right? A little bit of public speaking, or what the Metro's done here with having an opportunity to ask you stuff. What do you think about being a streamer?
I wouldn't really, I'm not sure if I'd like to do that as a career, but I mean like streaming is like, I don't know.
Right? No, but I mean, to the point though, is that sometimes learning is about learning what you don't like as well.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, going through this kind of a process, you really learn some of that stuff as well.
Hey, Avery, what do your friends think of what you got going on?
I haven't really told my friends, but they said that it was awesome how I was on the news. But my teachers and principal were really like this.
That's great.
Yeah, that's actually been really cool. So we live out in Vail, so we're in the Vail School District, and we got to give a lot of credit to his teacher, you know, his principal at that school, because she really was really open-minded to you bringing this 3D printer home with you. You know, and the school district was very supportive in that way. They even reached out to another high school that had a 3D printer. That's where the sugar cube thing comes from. You know, so we got to hand it to that district too, that they've been very supportive in what he's doing and seeing what they can do to help.
Yeah.
Nice.
What are some of the topics when they do the Ask Avery segments? Is it just varied topics? So do people just
Well, it's mostly like we'll have it's the exact same with the printers in the background of me standing here, but it's like people ask me questions and I'll answer them.
Okay.
One of our favorite questions came from old Ted Maxwell. He said, where do you get your brains from, your mom or your dad?
And I said my grandpa.
Classic, right?
That's the smart, safe answer.
Yes, it is.
Right. Exactly. The safe one. I love that. So, yeah, but I think, you know, what else? Let's see. We've got all these different colors here. I mean, it's also been interesting just from a fundraising standpoint. how reactive our community's been in regards to doing that. We've been able to ship them. Where do you know where all we've shipped them? Do you remember?
Well, I know that we have sent some all the way to Korea.
Yep.
Because with the donations and the GoFundMe, we're able to use that to pay for the shipping all the way out of the country.
Sure.
And then we sent some to California, I
Yep.
think,
A couple times.
and then some over to Phoenix.
We've gone up to Oregon, been to Connecticut. Where else? Yeah. Texas. Just been all over the place, really. So it's been interesting, again, just getting the word out there and how many people it affects, you know, these years. So a lot of times people will say, can I get 1 or 2? And we're just like, yeah, we just threw 10 in the bag here. Just take them, you know,
Yeah.
pass them out, whatever the case might be. We had someone, so here's another thing. So Zach Yenser, he's been a part of that Tucson Helping Tucson show now. His first time on the show, he used our story as kind of like one of the showcase of what the community's members are doing. And someone who was watching the show was just like, oh yeah, my wife or works for like some of the supplies over there at St. Mary's and St. Joe's, and they're using a barrel of monkeys to hold back the things. And so we were like, I wrote in the chat and I was like, hey, listen, if you're serious about that, I mean, that's really ingenious, but we've got a solution for you. And they ordered 500 for each one of those hospitals. So we're able to deliver all those ones out as well. So again, it's just getting the word out there. And so how many people are, you know, want them or need them?
Does anybody else have any questions for Avery or Jason?
No, I think I just want to say first and foremost, thank you guys so much for agreeing to come on this. I've been, you know, Jason and I have known each other for a little while now, and I keep tracks of everything on social media. And I just got to say, I'm super impressed with your ability to do this. I'm super impressed with the spread and the reach that you've been able to have. I'm really excited to see that our community is coming together to help you in this initiative, and I'm really excited about your future. And Jason, you guys should be very proud of your son. He's doing amazing things. So keep up the good work.
Yeah, absolutely, man. For sure. I'll give a couple shout outs too, because even the Metro, you guys support, you know, our local community, and you had me in your newsletter, because really what bottlenecked us, and like what that was really alluding to, was, you know, just the how fast we're able to do this. And that's really our bottleneck, is that we just can't produce them at a high level. So Howard Stewart, you know, and AGM Containers, they stepped up. And they've got one machine that they've got working as well. So they're able to help. We've got a couple other people out there that are just helping along the way. So you guys keep doing it, because even just, there's so many cool things that are happening, I think, in the community that you guys are integrated even within just the smallest of projects that are happening, and you're bringing them to light. And so you guys keep doing what you're doing as well.
Yeah. And another thing we do is once they're done, we then stack them in groups of 25 like this with the rubber band. And
Yeah.
because another thing
Little
cool is
organization.
with the stand, it doesn't go all the way over, so we can fit a rubber band over that really easily.
And it's designed to fit how many?
And it's like, because I think each one of these is like 1.2 millimeters tall. So then this thing is like 25 times 1.2 millimeters tall. So once the ear savers are just as tall as the pole is, that's the perfect amount.
Look at this kid. Thinking.
Very cool. You have a lot to be proud of, Jason and Avery. You're an amazing young man. Like Adam said, what you will do in the future is amazing. And I've even interested about the 3D printers. I've always had some interest in that, and I've never purchased one yet, but you kind of inspired me to look into it a little more. So it's very, very interesting. So
God bless you.
the last call. Does anybody else have any questions? No questions? All right. Well, thank you again to you both.
What's
Hold on.
the
Oh, please.
Sorry, what's the average size of the requests that you get from hospitals?
From hospitals?
I guess we typically get a common order of 100. Sometimes
Yeah.
they'll ask for another 100. Sometimes they'll just straight up ask for 1,000.
Yeah, that's kind of it. I meant to say this too. Yeah, so our average is usually, from the hospital standpoint, it's about 100. But honestly, I think it's more because they're testing it, and maybe they're not sure if they want to like overwhelm us. So I think that's it. But every single hospital we've sent 100 to have almost immediately come back and they're like, "Can we get more?" And it's like, "Yeah, for sure." Here's one thing I will tell you is that we got a hold of somebody, and I don't know how they, social media, how it works. You never really know where these people come from, but she's part of the hospital out in Safford. And so this is Mount Graham Hospital. And they ordered 1,000. And so we've been able to give 600 so far. And what was interesting about what their comments were is that they said, when all this stuff broke out, there was such a high demand for Tucson that everyone's working really hard to get the stuff to Tucson, that these rural areas, like everyone's like, we'll fill in what we got in Tucson first and then we'll get to you. So they really feel like they never really had these opportunities. And so they were super appreciative that we were getting some stuff out to them, because it's almost like the focus was, in town first, then we were going to go out there. So I think that's something that, again, you learn about all this stuff. So that you never even knew was possible. But something to think about is some of the rural areas, if there's a way that we can get some stuff out there, they're super appreciative. Or, Adam, I think you reached out to me about the nations, and what the demand is for PPE out there.
Yeah, I was able to get 900 masks sent up there, but there's a huge need on the Navajo reservation, not just in Arizona, but in New Mexico as well. I mean, I think the road to Gallup, New Mexico has been shut in all directions, and that's in the heart of Navajo country as well.
Gotcha.
Just one thing I would like to say is that, does anyone here know about the YouTuber Mr. Beast? Oh, because if you did, what he does is he does a lot of good things by giving away like literal tens of thousands of dollars. So I was just wondering what if we teamed up with Mr. Beast to, I don't know, because he literally just makes videos like just randomness, but then at the end he'll always like donate $1,000 to a shelter or something like that.
See, there you go.
Also, by the way, this is Mr. Beast's merch that I'm wearing.
There you go. There's a little plug. So if anyone,
you're a spokesman now.
If anyone knows Jimmy, let him know.
Nice.
By the way, the logo looks like that.
There you go.
Except it's blue and not gold.
Subscribe to Mr. Beast.
Well, we've been recording this, so we'll send you guys the file and you can send it to him for the shout out.
There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, great. Well, again, thank you to you both for presenting. Did an amazing job. Very interesting. So we thank you again. And I just want to do it real quick. For tomorrow, we have Jack Clements from the Jack Clements Agency, and he's going to be talking about COVID-19 coverage or no coverage. So please join us for that if you would like to. And again, thank you to you both, and thank you for everybody else for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Take care, guys.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
All right, bye.